Hey everyone, this is Julie Murphy, and today I am working on a coloring book page that I'm going to show how we can put stitches in it, how we can break it apart, how we can make it into separate pieces. So let's get started. First, we're going to go into my design center. And then, because we actually have a line design versus an illustration, we have our 3 scans where we just want to scan the background and not use it for stitching or maybe for tracing. We have a line scan and we have an illustration scan. For this one, because it's a mandala, I want to actually just do a line scan. And we'll press scan and get started. So we finished scanning, and this is what it looks like on our screen. First thing we're going to do is crop our image and take out anything that we don't want. Remember, we can get close, but we don't want to get on top of our design and make part of it disappear. So that looks pretty good. So let's keep going forward. There's our grayscale. We will set it. And now you'll notice that our magnets are still there. If that bothers you, we can go ahead. Remember, the light flower with the dark circle takes our background away, and our dark flower with our light circle adds it back. Remember, this is just a viewing, whether we want to see our background or we don't. So this doesn't change anything about our design. It's strictly a viewing position. I'm going to leave the background for right now. So now what we can do, we can zoom in and look at our different parts of our design and look for anything that we might want to erase in our design. And you'll notice we've got some little extra marks and things. So I think to start out with, we're just going to clean the design just a little bit. So we'll go over here and choose our eraser. And because these are just extra marks, I'm going to choose the smallest eraser. So I'm going to zoom the camera in, but before I do that, I want to, up here in our viewing window, I want to move the little design box over just a bit so I have an easier time of reaching the things I want to correct. And now I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little bit easier. So you can see some of the places that we would like to get rid of. So we've chosen our eraser, we've chosen our smallest eraser, and now we're just going to go in here and take out those extra pieces. And this one, it actually looks like I need to go from this side. Whoops, did you see what I did? I made this whole piece disappear, so I'm going to undo, and it puts the last thing back. Okay, and now I'm going to move the viewing window around as we look for any other really standout pieces that we just want to remove. Sometimes we just get these extra marks, and we just want to have those. Most of the time the machine will not stitch really things that are close to the stitch line, but then other times it'll just pick them up and, oh, as you see, I made that one disappear. Now also, let's see, I see one more thing. Now one thing I want you to see is right here, we didn't take this out, but it is obviously missing. So we really want to connect that up. So let me show you what we need to do. I'm going to zoom back out. And what we want to do is go into our line property area and take up the pencil. And then I'm going to zoom back in so you can see what we're doing. And what I'm going to do, just like we were doing with the eraser, with the pencil, we're just going to try and add a dot or two right here. And I'm not really worried about all that extra because what were we just doing? We were using the eraser. So now I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to choose the eraser and I'm going to stay with the smaller little eraser. Now I'm going to zoom back in on the mess that I just put in there. And we will take out all that extra that we just did. It's a lot. Now see how I just accidentally made it as a undo, undo. So a lot of times it's easier just to kind of make the mess and clean it up than it is to try and be perfect as you're redrawing your line areas. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So the next thing we can do, there's a couple of things. Suppose at this point I'm thinking maybe I just want to have the center medallion and I don't really want to have the outside portion. Before we start doing anything, the first thing we should probably do is save it into the pocket. Now remember, the red arrow puts it in the pocket of the Design Center, and the blue is when we want to retrieve something in Design Center. So we're going to put it into the red pocket, and now it is saved, and we can pull it back up if we decide we want to do something else with this particular scan. All right, someone had requested that they wanted to know how to actually break out a coloring book design so you can break it into parts. Now remember, we've saved it into the pocket, and if we just want to use just this center medallion, we can choose this little square right here. Do you see that? As soon as we touch it, it turns green behind it, which means that we have now chosen the selection box, and we can come up here. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this as we do it. We can now come up here and start where we want to actually cut or take our design. So now what we've got is we've got a red box around our design, and watch what we can do now. We can literally pull it out of our design. And let me zoom in for you. Do you see how this is now a lighter gray and this is still dark? That's because we have now removed the center portion of our design, and we can work just with that. We can go back in here and do another design box, and we can cut out, say we want to do this portion, and we want to now remove that down here. And so you can see we are breaking out the pieces in parts. Let me show you what else. So if we go down here now and remove our background, now you see how we have the design in here? If we go in and remove our background, it's showing us just stitches. So suppose I'm like, I really don't want all this other, then I can take my eraser now and I can say, make it big, and I can go in here and I can literally erase all this extra that I don't want. And now all of that is gone. I can also come up here and remove all of this. But suppose I just want to leave a little bit of it. We're back at our main My Design Center screen, and I want to show you how we retrieve our design. So you remember we saved it into the pocket with the red arrow. Now if we touch the one with the blue arrow and go into the pocket, there is the design that we just saved. So we will set it, and there it is on our screen. What I would like to show you now is another technique in using the selection box. So there's our selection box. So let's do this. So there we go. Now, a couple of things we can do. As long as this red box is around our center medallion, we can use this button and duplicate it. And now we actually have a separate piece of our medallion. We can also undo. We can go in and we can save it to the clipboard, which now has it there in case we decide to get rid of this, but we still would like to have it available to us. We can use the scissors and cut the medallion out if we think we'd like to use it for something else. So there we go, and our center medallion is now cut out of our design. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it a little better. At this point, if we would like to go into our shapes box right here, let's try adding a circle, and we're going to put in a fill stitch. So we'll say OK. So now what we have is we have a circle. It's a little hard to see right now, but what we'll go ahead and do is change the size of it, and this is our button to make it smaller. And what we're going to do is use this circle. Let me just move it a little bit. And the circle is going to allow us to fill in the center of our medallion with a fill stitch. So we'll say OK once we're happy with the size of it. Let me zoom out for you. So you can, let's zoom back in a little bit because I can see a couple of things I'd like to adjust. So do you see how we have some leftover marks around here? So we're going to touch our eraser, and we're going to choose our eraser, and we're going to go in, and we're going to just, let me zoom in for you so you can see a little bit easier. This is on the screen itself. So let me zoom out so you know what I'm doing. This is our viewing window up here, and what we can do is we move that around so we know where we want to be on the screen. We have our eraser, so we're just going to take out some of these extra marks here. As I'm doing this, I see a couple of marks over here that I also would like to take out. So I'll move my viewing window. I think I'd also like to get rid of that stray mark. This is the old leaf that was in there. Extra piece of leaf there. So what we're doing is just cleaning up our design one more time. Just anything that kind of stands out. One more mark here. Okay. So let's zoom back out. So that was at 400. And there you go. There is our circle that we added. Our design is cleaned up. And let's go in now to our, this is our regions area. And I would like to go to the notepad, and I'm going to go to the fill stitches. With the first upgrade, we had these first 10 stitches as fill stitches, and now I've got these extra 2 here, and over on the next page I have 3 more. But I think for this particular design, I'm going to choose this fill stitch, number 11. I'll say OK, and let's assign it a light blue color. So now I don't really want a paintbrush. The reason I don't want a paintbrush is it does like this. So I'll say undo. I'm going to choose the bucket in the regions area and touch inside my circle. Before I go changing these stitches out here, let me go ahead and go next. And what I want to do is I want to turn this outline off, because remember, we've already got a circle that's going to stitch. So I'm going to say off and set that. And I want my center design to be a little less. I think it's going to be 80%. So we'll set it and we'll preview it. So can you see that center medallion? And you can see how thick all of this is out here. And that's because right now it is set to a satin stitch. So let's go ahead and return, and we're going to change all these other stitches to be just either a bean stitch or a single stitch. I also see right here that I want to remove those two areas. So let's take our eraser, we'll take the smaller one, and we'll zoom in, and it was these lines right here that were showing up as extra. Okay, I think we've got that cleaned up. So we'll zoom back out. And now we're ready to actually go back in and change all of these other stitches. So let's do them. I might actually want to stitch them on my fabric to be different colors. So let's start with we'll start outer and work our way in. So to change the stitches of the design that's on the screen, we're actually going to go back into our line property area. We'll go into our notepad. I do want them to be single stitch, and so that we can see them on the screen, I'm going to choose an orange color. And I'll say OK. I'm going to choose somewhere in the outer band, but before I do that, I want to choose the bucket in the line property area. Let me zoom back in for you. And we'll touch somewhere in the outer band. And there you go. And now you can see what has been changed. And that's why I like to change the color of the thread, so that I can actually see as I'm working on the screen. Doesn't mean I'm going to stitch it like that, but it allows me to see what changes I have made. So now let's go into our line property area. I still want to have it as a single stitch, and this time I think I would like to change it to a light green. So I think I'm going to do, let me zoom in for you. I'm going to change all of the, let me adjust the camera. What I'm going to do is change all of the circles. Whoops. I'm going to undo that. I didn't mean to change my orange one. I think as I do this, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And I think I might actually go ahead and change the leaves as I go along. Each of these has to be done individually most of the time in order to actually change them. Now it looks like, let me zoom out for you. I'll zoom out here. Now the only thing that we haven't changed is this outer stitch of our interior flower, and I think for that, let's go ahead and preview it, but I think I actually might leave that as a satin stitch. So let's go next, and we will preview, and we'll say OK. I'm going to return because I would like to see my center medallion a little bit easier. So I'm going to change the color of that. I think I'll change that to a deeper pink. And I will change it to the bucket. Now that's the bucket of let me adjust the camera. So I'm going to change it to kind of a dark pink and make sure it's in the bucket. And there you go. So now let's preview it. And let me zoom in so you can see. I don't really like the center circle being so heavy. So what I'm going to do, one more change. So let's return again. And what we're going to do is go into our line property area. We're going to do the single stitch. I think I'll do it, let's see here, let's do it with this kind of browny color. And what we want to do here is still touch our bucket of our line area, and we're going to kind of come into the outside, and there you go. So with that one, let me undo it so you can see it one more time. So you can see, let me zoom in as much as I can, but we're going to kind of come in from the outside and touch that outer area where we don't even, let me do it one more time for you. So I kind of bring my pencil, my stylus in from the outer portion, and it changes it. So it prevents us from touching the fill, and it prevents us from doing the leaves, and it just makes it a little bit easier to change it. And again, I did it in a different color so that I could see that it was done. Now, one thing I have noticed is it looks like we do have a little bit of a messy mess up there at the top. So I'm going to touch my eraser, choose my smaller eraser, zoom in on the screen, and just this little bit right here. Okay. So now we're going to zoom back out on the screen. I'm going to zoom out on my video, and we will hit next, and we will preview. We'll say okay. And there's our design. And if we're happy with all of the changes that we made, we can resave it into the pocket at this point. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and set it and say okay. And I'm actually going to save it into the pocket of the embroidery area. And you can see that you're in embroidery now that we have this button. That is how we change a coloring book page. And changing the center medallion, we actually cut it, we could duplicate it, we can change the colors and the stitches, and that's how we work with a coloring book page in my design center. Thanks for watching.